So you have learned how to select elements using the basic selectors, but we can also select elements based on their relationship with other elements. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to generate a section with the ID of products. And in this section, I'm going to add a paragraph with 5 words. The content doesn't matter. Now let's say we want to style this paragraph element. One way to do this is by giving this element an ID or a class. But there's another way. We can start from this section. Because this section already has an ID, we can start here and then select the paragraph element inside this section. With this approach, we don't have to define an ID or a class on this attribute. So our markup will end up being cleaner. Let me show you how this works. So we go to our style sheet and start with the product section. Then we select the paragraph element. So we're combining 2 different selectors, right? So here I'm going to set the color to orange. Let's make sure it's working. Good. So this is an example of a relational selector. What we have here is called a descendant selector. But don't worry about the terminology too much. Just understand how this works. Now, this rule will apply to any paragraph elements inside the product section. For example, if you go over here and after this paragraph, we add an article with a paragraph and type something else here, this second paragraph will also be orange. Let me show you. So save the changes, take a look. Both paragraphs are orange. But what if you wanted to style only the first paragraph? That is this paragraph element that is a direct child of the product section. To do that, we have to type a greater than sign in between these 2 selectors. Now, only the first paragraph is orange. We have another relational selector for selecting siblings. So back to index.html, after this section, I'm going to add another paragraph. Now, let's say we want to style this paragraph element that is a direct sibling of the section element. So it comes right after the section. To do that, we type a plus in between these 2 selectors. Now, the third paragraph is orange. So this will select the paragraph element that comes immediately after the product section. So if you go to our markup and add another paragraph element, this second paragraph is not going to be orange. Take a look. See? Only the third paragraph is orange. But what if we want to style all paragraph elements that come after the product section? Well, we can replace the plus sign with a tilde. Now, this will select all paragraph elements that are general siblings of the product section. So both these 2 paragraphs are orange. So relational selectors help us write cleaner markup because we don't have to assign IDs and classes to various HTML elements. But there are 2 problems with relational selectors that you need to be aware of. The first problem is that they can be fragile because they're dependent on the location of these elements in the DOM. So if you move elements around, our styles will break. Let me show you what I mean. So here we have a rule for selecting all paragraph elements that come after the product section. Now let's say tomorrow, we decide to move this paragraph and put it before the product section. So I'm going to cut this line and then paste it over here. Now, this line is not going to be orange. Here you go. So if we move elements around, our styles will break. The second problem with these selectors is that they are not as performant as basic selectors. Now, don't think too much about this because most of the time, the difference is negligible. You cannot even tell the difference. But let me explain why these selectors are not as fast as basic selectors. The reason goes back to how browsers read and execute these selectors. We humans start from the left side and go to the right side. So we go to the product section and then select all paragraphs that come after, right? This algorithm is not efficient for browsers. They start from the right side. So when a browser sees this selector, it selects all paragraph elements in the DOM, and then for each paragraph element, it checks to see if that element comes after the product section. Now, imagine on this page we have 100 paragraph elements. So the browser will select all these 100 paragraph elements just to find out that there is only one paragraph element that comes after the product section. So all that time to query those 99 paragraph elements will be wasted. Now, once again, most of the time, the difference is negligible. So don't optimize ahead of time. Remember the old saying in computer science, premature optimization is the root of all evils. So to recap, Relational selectors help us write cleaner markup, but sometimes they can be fragile. If you're very confident that the location of these elements you're targeting is not going to change in the future, it's perfectly fine to use them. Otherwise, prefer to select elements by their ID or class.